Hey, Atheists, I have a question.
But if you want it, you got it, sister!
Hello everyone, I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Today we're taking a look at a collection of shorts from an Australian Muslim apologist TikToker known as Lily J. Now, utilizing a platform like TikTok doesn't allow one to delve into theological or philosophical matters with any degree of depth or rigor, so it's par for the course that most everything she has to say is surface-level flotsam apologetics. But most of it leans towards attempting to mainstream or normalize Islam for a largely Western audience, or positioning Islam as a superior alternative to Christianity. And when those two thick-headed theologies lock horns, I'm mostly content to just kick back and crack a cold one. Not my battle, after all. And when it comes right down to it,
Let them fight.
But with some of Lily's shorts, she turns her sanctimonious and condescending ire on non-believers and falls into an absolute septic tank worth of bad takes, fallacious reasoning, and outright dumb claims to try to rhetorically one-up atheistic viewpoints and make her like-minded theological brethren feel the way that she does, which would be smugly superior to anyone who doesn't think exactly the way that she does. And it is these shorts that we're going to be responding to an assortment of today, and seeing what kind of nuggets of wisdom can be conjured up from a pop princess apologist seeking social media glory in place of actual philosophical exploration that lasts longer than the time it takes to fry an egg. Which reminds me, this is your brain. This is your brain on Islam.
Wait, it's not over yet.
This is what your family goes through. And your friends and your money. And your drugs.
So let's dive in and hear what Lily J has to say to us non-believers about how ridiculous it is that we don't believe in her God. But before we get to that, if you end up liking what you see in this video and would like to help out the channel, make sure to subscribe and click the bell so you'll always be notified when new content comes out. Check out my social media, including my Patreon, Twitter, and Blue Sky, all linked in the description. And of course, like this video, pop in a comment, all that goes a long way towards pleasing the YouTube algorithm. Beneath boundless beliefs, boldly burst bright, brilliant, brainy beings, biologically based behavior becomes better by bypassing biblical blatancy, but bigotry brands brain-dead believers. May keep my channel motoring along. Now on to today's video.
Hey, Atheists, I have a question. So you're telling me that all this natural beauty is here by itself and doesn't have a creator? But the phone that you are watching me on has a maker, has a designer, has a creator? Like, how does that work?
First and foremost, what the hell is wrong with your shirt? Tuck or untuck, lady? You look like you were in the middle of doing the walk of shame home from a party, still wearing last night's unkempt ensemble, when inspiration struck you to grab your phone and film the 10 millionth iteration of the watchmaker argument, as if it were an original thought that just came to you in a moment of profound clarity. Well, actually, that's not quite fair of me. I'm certain that this exact line of thinking has been belched up far more than 10 million times over the years. But one thing you said there is quite humorous that caught my eye. Not sure you realized what you did there, Lily. Let's hit the instant replay.
All this natural beauty, natural beauty, natural beauty.
Interesting how you didn't call it God-created beauty or designed beauty. But no, natural. You called it natural beauty. And you're right, it is natural. An inherent aspect of the natural physical world. Not designed, not created, but occurring naturally. Meanwhile, the thing that you attempted to compare all that beauty to, a smartphone, is not a naturally occurring object. It's a man-made object, and therefore requires man to make it, requires man to design it, to create it. A smartphone cannot occur by unguided, unintended natural processes. But do you know what can arise by unguided, unintended natural processes? Nature.
I'm not religious. I believe in science. Why can't we have both? Let me break it down for you. Albert Einstein was one of the greatest scientists to ever live, right? He said, the more I study science, the more I believe in God. Also, Isaac Newton, one of the smartest men to ever live, he said that the thumb alone would convince him of God's existence. Max Planck, the founder of quantum physics, he said that both religion and science require a belief in God. Also, Werner Heisenberg, a famous physicist, he said that the first gulp from the glass of natural science will turn you an atheist. But at the bottom of the glass, God is waiting for you. So, I believe in science too. It's a tool we can use to understand the beauty and complexity of God's creation. What do you guys think?
For starters, it is an absolute straw man to claim that it's a common atheistic claim that one cannot believe in both religion and science. I mean, I know that you were responding to something from your comment section, but hell, you can find practically any nonsensical BS in a comment section or a social media post. That doesn't mean that it's an accurate representation of a whole collective of people with a shared ideology. Of course, some of the most prolific scientific minds throughout human history have been religious and have believed in a god. But there are some major caveats that you are failing to mention where that's concerned. For starters, all of those great scientists from history lived in times when religion was not only much more prevalent, but was absolutely ubiquitous. It was practically unheard of to not be a Christian in Isaac Newton's day and locale. There were major sociocultural pressures upon the scientists of the past to affirm the existence of God publicly. Lest we forget what happened to Galileo. Not for claiming that God didn't exist, but just for following the evidence that the earth revolved around the sun, which was considered heresy by the Catholic Church and the Inquisition of the day. It wasn't until 1992 that the Catholic Church officially acquitted Galileo and declared that he had been right all along. Yes, you heard that right. That was not me misspeaking. 1992. 33 years ago, before that heresy charge was abated. And you expect, with something like that still being effect during Einstein's time, that he was going to publicly claim atheism? And furthermore, while we're on Einstein specifically, it's inaccurate to call him a theist or believer per se. At best, Einstein was a fence-sitter. Albert Einstein's religious views have been widely studied and very often misunderstood. Albert Einstein stated, "I believe in Spinoza's God." He did not believe in a personal God who concerned himself with fates and actions of human beings, a view which he described as naive. He clarified, however, that "I am not an atheist," preferring to call himself an agnostic or a religious non-believer. In other interviews, he noted his belief in a cosmic lawgiver who sets the laws of the universe. Einstein also stated he did not believe in life after death, adding, "One life is enough for me." And furthermore, it is frankly more than a little disingenuous to cherry-pick a handful of scientists, misrepresent their specific beliefs like you just did with Einstein in order to declare them theists just the way that you are, and ignore the actual statistics when it comes to scientists and faith. Scientists are about the most likely demographic of people to be atheists. Only 33% of scientists report believing in God. Another 18% don't believe in anything classifiable as a god, but do believe in some kind of nebulous, undefined higher power, whatever that means. That would likely be the position where Einstein would have found himself. But a much larger 41% of scientists don't believe in either. So what? We don't count them because they don't fall on your side of the theistic debate, Lily? Is that what we're doing here? Also, another little sticking point that you refuse to acknowledge is that even among those scientists who do believe in some version of a god, almost none of them believe in your God, Lily. With about 1.6 billion adherents, Islam is the second largest religion on Earth. Yet, its followers represent less than 1% of the world's scientists. Only a handful of people from Muslim-majority countries have won Nobel Prizes in science. And then, on a final note, I think the real intention of that post that you were responding to here wasn't a claim that one cannot believe in both science and religion at the same time. It is that religious beliefs are inherently unscientific. And so, to believe in both science and religion is to refuse to hold one's religious beliefs to the same scrutiny that is required for scientific inquiry. Hey, if you want to think there's some kind of an indistinct demiurge at work in the cosmos that started off existence, fine, whatever. But if you think your God split the moon in twain on behalf of Muhammad, who flew to heaven on a magical donkey, you have exempted your religious faith from anything resembling the scientific method or empirical data in favor of what you want to be true because it makes you feel good. And if that's the case, you know what? That's fine too. I mean, right up to the point where your insistence that it's true results in you having a negative impact on other people's rights and lives, but fine. But at least own that that's what you're doing. Stop stumping for fairy tales and calling it science.
Hey atheists, I have a question. So you're telling me that this food couldn't possibly make itself, right? But the universe, which is so much more complex, did? Like, how does that work?
Why do you ask questions to which you already know the answers? I've heard these arguments before.
What, were you just desperate for a little content boost for your TikTok algorithm and you couldn't think of anything worth a damn to post? So you figured, hey, I'll just repeat the same trash argument that's already been repeated countless times before, and even many times before by me. But hey, this time I'm comparing the natural world to food instead of a smartphone, so it's totally different this time. Well, you're right, Lily, it is different. It's even worse, considering most food does occur naturally. Or it did until we came along, got our hands on it, and then used our limited, mortal, frail human brains and skills to improve drastically on what you think your God designed in his infinite wisdom.
Behold, the atheist's nightmare. Now, if you study a well-made banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 ridges. On the close side, 2 ridges. If you get your hand ready to grip a banana, you'll find on the far side there are 3 grooves, on the close side 2 grooves. The banana and the hand are perfectly made one for the other. You'll find the maker of the banana, Almighty God, has made it with a non-slip surface. It has outward indicators of inward contents: green, too early; yellow, just right; black, too late.
Yeah, it actually exists that way because we made it to have all of those things. Naturally occurring bananas were dog shit. And so, ultimately, the same refutation when, Lily, you compared nature to a smartphone applies when you compare nature to your meal. It's the difference between what occurs naturally, unguided, undesigned as a result of brute forces and facts of the universe, versus man-made objects like smartphones, watches, bananas, and all that basic bitch shit I'm sure you overpaid for while stiffing the waitstaff on a decent tip. Man-made things need man to make them. Naturally occurring things need no one to make them, because they are naturally occurring.
Hey atheists, I have a question. You say religious people are stupid for believing that the universe was created by a God that's invisible, right? But do you know what's even crazier? Believing that something can come from nothing. Now that is crazy, because it's scientifically impossible. How can you believe this universe was created from nothing? Can this simple coffee make itself? Not need a barista? How does that work?
Well, then it's a good thing that I don't believe that everything came from nothing. But you know who does believe that the entire universe came from nothing? Well, that would be you, Lily. Well, as long as you, as a good little Muslim, hold to what the Quran says on the matter. According to the Quran, specifically Surah Al-Baqarah 2:117, he is the originator of the heavens and the earth. When he decrees a matter, he simply tells it, be, and it is. That is part of your belief system, Lily. It's annoying enough when Christians erroneously insist that atheism posits something from nothing. Don't you do it too? See, atheism makes absolutely no claim about the beginning of the universe. It doesn't even claim that there was a beginning to the universe, or that there wasn't. Actually, atheism makes no claims about anything whatsoever. Atheism is just not believing in any gods. Not believing in any gods has nothing to do with where the universe came from or how it got here. Now, If you are instead arguing against naturalism or materialism and the idea of the scientific model that is the Big Bang Theory being the ultimate beginning of everything, which I think that you are, there are a few problems you're running into that you should have been able to avoid if you had more than a first-grade religious fundamentalist flawed indoctrination on this matter. 1. The Big Bang Theory is not an inherent part of atheism, naturalism, or materialism. It is, however, the best working model that science has for the universe we see around us today. 2. The Big Bang was not the explosion of the universe out of nothing. It is the expansion of the current presentation of our universe from an initial state of high density and temperature. 3. The Big Bang model does not currently have the ability to examine evidence any further back than the Planck time, which is a tiny fraction of a second after the Big Bang expansion began. As such, it posits absolutely nothing about where the initial hot, dense state came from, and it certainly doesn't claim that it came from nothing. 4. Even most God-believing religious people accept the reality of Big Bang cosmology. They just think that God did it rather than it being a natural occurrence. And 5. You look like an absolute goober when you look down your nose at atheists for believing in something that they don't necessarily believe in at all, call said belief stupid, when that belief is absolutely something that you, as a Muslim, must necessarily believe in yourself.
Hey, atheists, I have a question. So you call religious people crazy for believing in miracles, right? But you believe in the most preposterous miracle of all, that the universe was created from nothing. It's impossible for something to come from nothing. How does that work?
I believe I've already answered that question.
Yeah, gotta keep that content farm rolling, right? TikTok viewers have nanosecond attention spans, right? So I'm sure they'll quickly forget that you just said that same thing last Thursday, so just repeat yourself and get the exact same viewers giving you the thumbs up all over again. Now, my question is, why even bother making a new video to begin with? I mean, surely the path of least resistance would be to just re-upload that previous video all over again. I'm sure your viewers won't notice that it's an absolute repeat. I'm sure they'll think it's new. I have atheistic faith in your viewers' gullibility.
Hey atheists, I have a question. So you guys believe that all of this, the whole universe, the trees, the grass, the ocean, the skies, everything is a coincidence, right? And without a creator. But scientifically, it is basically impossible that this is a coincidence. Is it not more logical to think that this is evidence of intelligent design? How does that work?
What do you mean, a coincidence? A coincidence is a remarkable concurrence of events or circumstances without apparent causal connection. It's when separate, unrelated events happen at the same time that would appear to be connected, but aren't. Like if another pink furry cycloptic tribble with my same name showed up here, but had no relation or connection to me, that would be a coincidence. But I don't see how the natural, unguided formation of this universe or planet would be a coincidence. I'm not positing any concurrent, unrelated events. I'm positing a chain of causal events. A universe formed in accordance with the natural, brute fact forces of existence. Primarily the nuclear force, strong and weak, gravity, and electromagnetism. These forces caused atoms to bond together to form elements. Those elements also bonded together through chemistry to form compounds and molecules. The larger these bondings became, the more gravitational effect they caused, resulting in them being attracted to one another and conglomerating into larger and larger celestial objects until they could be considered a planet. That caused the gravitational attraction of gaseous atoms until an atmosphere developed. That atmosphere allowed for weather patterns to develop. Those weather patterns and geological phenomena caused oceans to form, which was a giant petri dish in which the proper chemical building blocks for life could come together and form early simple life forms, with the inherent ability to genetically mutate and evolve over time. Planetary conditions caused natural selection pressures that resulted in that life evolving in a massive branching evolutionary tree that saw over 99% of all species that ever arose to fall into extinction, and the scant few who survived became the diverse life on the planet today. Now, absolutely none of this is coincidental. None of it is unrelated or without causal connection. Everything in this naturalistic, materialistic view of the universe and its existence, from the beginning of the Big Bang expansion through stellar development, planetary formation, life beginnings, and evolutionary steps, all the way up to today, is a line of cause and effect that is absolutely not coincidental. But here's the kicker: none of it requires, or even hints at there being, any kind of an intelligent designer or guiding hand. It is not only possible for every bit of it, every single step in that 14 billion years of cause and effect, to be the result of unintelligent, unguided natural forces, but in fact every speck of genuine empirical evidence that we have, of which we have mountains worth, points to that being the case. So if you're really asking what is the most logical conclusion given the evidence, well, that answer is clear, because the evidence absolutely points to it all being the result of natural forces, not of any kind of a god. This entire argument of yours basically boils down to an argument from incredulity, which is just you concluding that because you can't or refuse to believe something, it must not be true, improbable, or the argument must be flawed. This is a specific form of the argument from ignorance. And ignorance is very much at play in your line of thinking, Lily, because you don't understand all of the various steps towards the universe and this planet and life arising naturally without a magical, all-powerful being making it so out of God magic, so you conclude that it cannot have happened naturally. Well, don't start talking about evidence when 100% of the actual, verifiable, empirical evidence is decidedly against you.
Hey atheists, I have a question. Why do you get so mad in my comments when I mention God? Like, how can you get offended at something that you don't even think exists? You don't get mad at Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy, but God makes you mad? How does that work?
Would you like me to explain?
I would love to hear this.
Well, allow me to clarify, Lily. Santa Claus isn't the reason for literally hundreds of religious wars that have been fought over the entire span of human history, with the accompanying countless losses of human life, injury, oppression, and outright genocide that has often been a part of those conflicts. The Tooth Fairy is not the reason laws, standards, and sociocultural norms have been adopted and enforced that resulted in the cessation or curtailing of people's rights, privileges, and freedoms, both historically and up to this very day. I mean, comes right down to it, a proposed God is the centerpiece of most of the world's major religions to this day. And as such, problems that non-believers such as myself have with religion and the beliefs that come with that are often misconstrued as hatred of the God that the religion focuses on. But the real problems are with the religions themselves. And why would we have problems with the dominant religions in power? Oh, no reason really. I mean, it's not like the country that I live in and that you live in, thinly veiled theocracies where politicians pass laws based on their religious beliefs and then deny people rights and privileges based on a belief in a being which doesn't actually exist. It's not like people indoctrinate their children into these beliefs before they're old enough to even hold their heads upright and then saddle them with an oppressive belief system that, in many cases, will deeply traumatize them in ways that they'll spend the rest of their lives trying to come to terms with. It's not like these pervasive religious beliefs further marginalize already oppressed minorities because the beliefs insist that people are choosing to live in sin when they're just trying to be their authentic selves, to the point of breaking up families when fundamentalist parents refuse to accept their children for who they are. It's not like this belief system has been used, historically and in present day, to oppress women and keep them subservient to a patriarchal system, as well as the men in their own lives who proclaim that they love them while simultaneously denying them any agency or autonomy. It's not like countries that reject these backwoods, antiquated beliefs and embrace secularism and modernity statistically improve economically, culturally, technologically, scientifically, and in terms of lower crime rates and general happiness. And it's not like I and many others personally suffered mental and emotional trauma from our religious upbringings and wish to see that kind of trauma negated. Most easily accomplished by lessening the hold that religion has on the culture at large, which also results in a lessening of God belief in general. Which, as earlier stated, is seen as hatred towards the God that you worship instead of what it really is, a problem with fundamentalist religious thinking and the myriad of problems that it inflicts upon society and individuals. I mean, let me put it to you more simply, Lily. During the height of the satanic panic in the 80s, when religious knobs were persecuting people for playing Dungeons and Dragons, was it because those dingbats hated Vecna? Or did they just really not like what D&D was doing to their kids? You know, giving them a sense of community and a shared mythology to conglomerate around that wasn't their parents' fake mythology. Well, that just couldn't be allowed.
Hey atheists, I have a question. Did you know you stole the Big Bang Theory? So the Big Bang Theory was originally created by a religious man, a Catholic priest. So he explained the theory as creation coming all from a single atom, a single source, a single creator. God, maybe? How does that work?
As a Muslim, I wouldn't be throwing around accusations of stealing the Big Bang Theory from a Catholic, Lily. He's not exactly on your side just because you both affirm a magic skyfather. I mean, according to his mythology, you're on a rocket ship to hell right next to me, you false god worshiper, you. Hell, Catholicism even makes allowances for non-believers before they do for practitioners of false faiths. But yes, it's true that Georges Lemaitre, the progenitor of what's become the Big Bang model, was a Catholic priest as well as a physicist. But it would be completely false to say that he formulated the Big Bang Theory as part of his Catholic beliefs, or that science using it to this day is in any way stealing from Catholicism. Lemaitre viewed his work as a scientist as neither supporting nor contradicting any truths of the Catholic faith, and he strongly opposed to making any arguments that mix science with religion, although he held that the two were not in conflict. He was always anxious that his work on cosmology should be judged on purely scientific criteria. In 1951, Pope Pius XII gave an address to the Pontifical Academy of Sciences with Lemaitre in the audience, in which he drew a parallel between the new Big Bang cosmology and the Christian doctrine of creation ex nihilo. Indeed, it seems that the science of today, by going back in one leap millions of centuries, has succeeded in being a witness to that primordial fiat lux, when out of nothing there burst forth with matter a sea of light and radiation. Thus modern science has confirmed with the concreteness of physics proof that contingency of the universe and the well-founded deduction that about that time the cosmos issued from the hand of a creator. Lemaitre was reportedly horrified by that intervention and was later able, with the assistance of Father Daniel O'Connell, the director of the Vatican Observatory, to convince the Pope not to make any further public statements on religious or philosophical interpretations of matters concerning physical cosmology. According to the theoretical physicist and Nobel laureate Paul Dirac, once when I was talking with Lemaitre about his cosmological theory, and feeling stimulated by the grandeur of the picture that he had given us, I told him that I thought cosmology was the branch of science that lies closest to religion. However, Lemaitre did not agree with me. After thinking it over, he suggested psychology as lying closer to religion. So it isn't fair to say that Lemaitre was a Catholic who did some science, and thus his Big Bang Theory is a Catholic, theistic model. It would be more accurate to say that Lemaitre was a scientist who did real science that has been tested and proven to stand the test of time, and he also happened to, coincidentally, have been a Catholic, and that him being a Catholic had absolutely fuck all to do with his scientific work.
Hey atheists, I have a question. So everyone in my comments, they keep saying Big Bang, everything came from the Big Bang. But where did the material for the Big Bang even come from? Like, Can something really come from nothing? How does that work?
I don't know. Shall we go back to your holy book again? Because your ilk seem to think something coming from nothing is downright commonplace, with the idea of a magical god being who just does it, like it's nothing. But anyway, I've implied a number of times throughout this response that you, Lily, are, shall we say, less than well versed on a number of topics that you choose to speak on.
Poor dumb sick animal.
But this one really goes to showcase exactly what I'm talking about. Material? Where did the material for the Big Bang come from? Really? Okay, for starters, the Big Bang is an action. It's not an object. The Big Bang didn't need material. What the Big Bang happened to might have needed material, or at least you could try to make the argument that it did, but that would belie even further ignorance. Now, even the most basic, cursory look into the Big Bang model in any physics or cosmology textbook or website will give you the same basic information. The Big Bang is a physical theory that describes how the universe expanded from an initial state of high density and temperature. Its essential feature is the emergence of the universe from a state of extremely high temperature and density. The universe began, scientists believe, with every speck of its energy jammed into a very tiny point. This extremely dense point exploded with unimaginable force, creating matter and propelling it outward to make the billions of galaxies of our vast universe. You're gonna get that same basic explanation everywhere you look, which tells me that you never bothered to look up anything about it. Or at the very least, if you did, you didn't understand anything that it said. There was no material for the Big Bang to act on. There was no matter. There was only energy. That's where the temperature part of the explanation comes in. Heat is essentially a way of measuring energy. So when they say that it was extreme, some even identify it as near infinite energy, they're saying that there was so much energy that the very laws of physics that we use to quantify energy break down completely. That energy is what the Big Bang expansion happened to. And when that energy was no longer contained in a single singularity point, it cooled. It took on different properties. And as we know by our understanding of relativity, energy does, can, and did become matter. In the first moments after the Big Bang, the universe was extremely hot and dense. As the universe cooled, conditions became just right to give rise to the building blocks of matter, the quarks and electrons of which all are made. A few millionths of a second later, quarks aggregated to produce protons and neutrons. Within minutes, these protons and neutrons combined into nuclei. As the universe continued to expand and cool, things began to happen more slowly. It took 380,000 years for electrons to be trapped in orbits around nuclei, forming the first atoms. These were mainly helium and hydrogen, which are still, by far, the most abundant elements in the universe. Present observations suggest that the first stars formed from clouds of gas around 150 to 200 million years after the Big Bang. Heavier atoms, such as carbon, oxygen, and iron, have since been continuously produced in the hearts of stars and catapulted throughout the universe in spectacular stellar explosions called supernova. So that's where the material of the universe came from. It started as densely compacted energy that expanded and became matter. Now, if you're asking where did that initial energy come from, as I stated in a response to an earlier post in this video, science currently does not possess the ability to examine evidence from before the Planck time, or before the Big Bang began. As such, we don't know where the energy came from because of our current scientific limitations. There are models and hypotheses that seek to answer that question, some of which include multiversal explanations, or cyclical time, or mere eternally existent energy that didn't need to come from anywhere. But our inability to answer its origins currently is not a justification to leaping to an unsubstantiated fairy tale like your God claim, any more than it was justifiable to claim that illnesses came from spells or hexes before we discovered what germs were.
That's the
stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, maybe it is stupid, but it's also dumb.
I think that's enough of Lily J for one day. If this is your first introduction to her, this is really the kind of caliber of argument that one can expect from her. Snarky, smarmy, holier-than-thou, pun absolutely intended, delivery of some of the most vapid, shallow, brainless, and regularly regurgitated apologetic arguments that bottom-of-the-barrel God-botherers bother to bother God about. In this assortment, we had the watchmaker argument repeated multiple times. We had lying about scientists aplenty being just the most devoutly of all religious adherents. An example of every religious accusation being a confession when she claimed atheism insists everything comes from nothing, something that is absolutely impossible by her own admission, when that is not only not an aspect of atheism, but it absolutely is a cornerstone of her Muslim theology. Throw in that she couldn't science her way out of a paper bag, which therefore must obviously mean that her God exists, because the problem couldn't possibly be her own inability to understand anything more complex than, "'cause Magic Man done did all the things." And then, not knowing the first thing about the Big Bang Theory or the man who first proposed it, and you have the steaming pile of flaccid ignorance that is Lily J. Believe me, there is much more of her trying to dunk on atheism, and if you would like to see me suffer through more of her nonsense, I will make a part 2 of this exploration of excrement. The things I do for you people's enjoyment. But if you're anything like me, dear viewer, watching our way through this wasteland of wanton witless wankery probably made you facepalm so many times you're feeling like you went 10 rounds with Rocky Balboa at this point. But keep in mind, the audience Lily is pandering to is one that is so similarly vapid as she that she garnered over 2 million followers on her primary platform. And if that isn't a sad commentary on the digital generation, I don't know what is. So that is where we'll end things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Check me out on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Patreon if you'd like to support my work directly. My Teespring if you want some Plinky merchandise, all that link below in the description. Special shout out to my most recent super thankers here on YouTube, Salvi Mike, Autumnal Fling, Michael Martin, and Hermage2. And with that said, until next time, I'm Professor Plink reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.